All right. Well, welcome back to another star-studded edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric as we
Star?
discuss the New
What
York Giants.
stars?
We discuss the New York Giants. I'm John McDevitt, along with me, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, I know you got a shit ton of things you want to talk about today, so we're going to try
Oh,
to.
I got nothing. I have absolutely. I do have to help me this morning. I do have my Bloody Mary,
Oh, damn it.
and I do have my Grinch shirt. Since
Oh, not
Giants
very
are
nice.
kind of being like the Grinch. Actually, the Giants, Joe Shane's more like Christmas Vacation. He's like Cousin Eddie with the shitters full out with the RV. One of my favorite scenes of Christmas movies.
Yeah, I still love to see he goes, honey, is our shitter full? It's like, stop, he doesn't know better.
That's Joe Shane right now with the music in the background. If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh my God, that's classic. That's classic. Yeah. So there's a bunch. I'm sporting my Inside BBI, my brand new Inside BBI sweatshirt. It's very nice. The link will be in the description and all that good stuff later if you want to get some merch. So I got something kind of interesting. It's not related to this whatsoever, but a friend of mine from work, my birthday was back in November, had sent me something. My job is in Vermont. I live in South Carolina. Had sent me something, but he had the wrong zip code. So we got bounced back. So it just arrived yesterday. So I opened this card up and inside it. So to tell a quick story. I work remotely. I have worked remotely since 2014. And when COVID hit and they sent originally in 2020, they sent everybody home for the first time office wise. I was the only remote worker at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the company was very fixated on COVID itself, on the rising numbers. He was so he thought he was doing a good thing by like he would send an email out almost daily telling people, oh, the numbers are rising here and take care of yourself, and would tell people, do what you need to do to be mentally okay, get up and walk away and it's fine. We're not going to hold you to. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, we are giving the wrong message to people who have not been working home. They're going to be everywhere. So I started this thing. So long story short, I started this email. What I did is it's just basically a good morning email. And all it was it would recap kind of numbers of where we were business wise, things that we needed to kind of focus on, things you needed to deal with as being a remote employee. If you've never done it before, it can be very hard to self-manage. It gets very isolating. So I started this email. Long story short, this email still continues today. So it's still, I do every morning and each day I kind of recap our numbers. But I've included trivia questions in there, and then I give a prize out each at the end of each month, and I buy the prize and I have it shipped to the person. Bringing that back to where we were. So in this card, my friend said, "Oh, happy birthday, buddy," whatever. He goes, a prize for someone who gives prize to everybody else. So he sent me an autographed Lawrence Taylor card that he had found somewhere. So I was like, oh, so it's awesome. 1988 Topps. And of course, everybody knows LT's my all-time favorite player. My daughter's name has LT in her initials. My son's middle name is Eli, but anyway, that being said, so I just thought that was pretty cool. It came out of nowhere. It came at a time I wasn't expecting it. But that's what we've got to talk about as Giants fans. Things of the past and cool things that happen to us, because on Sundays or Saturdays or Mondays or Thursdays generally are not. So here we are, Eric.
You're not going to have any kids with the name Deontay or Jalen, I take it. A little late in the game anyways. But
there won't be any more. If there's any more kids, my wife's got some explaining to do. But
not that you know of.
Not that I know of.
All right, let's get to the Giants.
Well, there we are. So,
or draft or coaches or Shane or whatever you
let's start with the last thing that you just said, because it keeps coming up and I find it interesting. I love a lot of the beat guys. We know the beat guys. You know them even better than I do on some.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say.
But a couple of them. One of them started with you, for God's sakes, on BBI. So here we get things that come out where it's 50-50 now that Joe Shane might come back. First off, I'm thinking, where are you even remotely getting this information from?
Well, I don't know. But look, John, we were in this boat the last year. We haven't decided what we're going to do with people, and I don't think that's ever been discounted, because we've talked about it over and over for months, that they had a meeting with Dable to decide whether he was going to come back or not in December.
Right. After what we believed they had already met and decided Shane was coming back.
So I actually kind of believe that. I mean, would I bet the house on it? No, but my reaction to that is it's all right. If it's true, which is a big if, but if it's true, it's ridiculous that this team, and including last year and including any other year that we've gone through these coaching changes, which has been many in the last decade, why would what happens in the last month decide the fate of anybody? You should have decided the fate of these people way before December. These games should have no bearing on
Right.
who. I mean, and if it does, we're in way, 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 way more trouble than we realize, John, because it means that these guys are running the organization like infants. I mean, they're basically reacting to, I mean, who gives a shit if they beat the Raiders? And like you mentioned before we got on, that Cowboys game could be meaningless to them. I mean, so who cares? I mean, you're going to determine Shane's fate based on if the Giants win a game or two in the end. His fate should have been determined by now. And if it hasn't been, holy hell. I mean, holy hell.
Yeah, and it's I don't want to say it's backwards thinking, but it's nonsensical thinking in that Joe Shane's entire job and or results of what he's done or not done needs to be tied to what has the record been for this team over that period of time, B, the coaches that you brought in and especially when the one head coach, right? The assistants are his responsibility, but we know the Giants management plays a role in who gets hired. Right. So by extension, those assistant coaches, and you've gone through a number of those guys. That's happened multiple years. Then the players that you bring in and the players that you let go and your reasonings for letting them go. So all of that stuff is secondary. I mean, all the stuff on the field is secondary to all this. This is Joe's main job. The results on the field are a direct relation to what his job was outside of there, but then what the coaches do in game day. If you just look at the outside stuff, he's failed horribly. We're going to get to one guy in particular, but you still got players on this team right now that were drafted by them, drafted high, or you spent additional capital to get them, who have played they are the Captain Dunzel here. They have no significant role or responsibility to anything here. They literally just eat up a spot on the roster, right, and on the salary cap. That's all they do.
Evan Neal's a perfect example.
Well, he was the guy I was thinking, because especially with he's coming back.
How does he get hurt? It's not the same injury either. That's the thing.
He has a hammy and a neck. When did the neck happen?
I mean, in one practice, they don't hit anybody. What the hell? Anyway, I'm sorry.
Maybe he was looking. It is possible if you turn your head really fast to see what that giant weight is on your back, and it's just the word bust, and he probably hurt his neck doing that.
Yes.
But everything tied to Joe Shane is tied right there. It's right there. The draft pick failure has been horrible. If you ignored all that and you just went to the kicking thing, we are on kicker, I believe, number 4 for this year.
Somebody said we're on 8 over the last 3 or 2 years.
It's possible. I mean, we're 4 this year. I mean, because you started with we brought in the foreign player allocation guy, McTammany. Then you bring in Young Ho Koo. I guess we went foreign twice. And then you come back. Now we got Sauls. I mean, pretty soon, at this point, we should just randomly bring people out of the stands each week. I think it should be kind of like a fun game. Right. Have people show up. Who's going to be the kicker this week? That would be kind of fun. But it's the utter failure of that, and the bottom of the roster churning, which seems to be this weird game that he likes to play. And now I think it's financial, and you've mentioned some things now that make me think I was onto something with that. Yes. There really can't be one damn thing right now that you could look at and go, he should come back, right?
Well, look, I think he should go, but I'm going to preface my remarks by saying whether you think he should go or he should not, the decision should be made one way or the other. He should not by now. It shouldn't have waiting. He should. They very should have told him he's coming back or he's not coming back. Now, I think some people are speculating he's coming back, and they may be correct because he's supposedly compiling the new head coaching list. So I don't know, but I don't know if that's just lip service or if that's real. If it's real, that's scary. But look, the record should be very telling. But let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say, well, there was a coaching change, and then there was the rookie quarterback, and the defensive coordinator didn't work out. Whatever. His free agent class this year was a disaster. Now, some of these guys aren't terrible players, but they're certainly not living up to their contracts. And I'm talking about Adebo. I'm talking about Javon Holland. Then there are the disaster ones, like the backup tackle that hasn't been even active since the early part of the season. He hasn't played or anything like that. Then the drafts have gotten better in the last couple of years. But if you look at the roster, it's a disaster at inside linebacker. It's a disaster at wide receiver. And you can't just say, well, that's because of neighbors. You got to have more than one player at wide receiver. Right. It's a quarterback league. It's a wide receiver league right now. And if your wide receiver is neighbors and a bunch of guys that would have trouble making other teams. I mean, I think Wandell's having a decent year, but I think people are overrating even him. I don't know if there's been another wide receiver in NFL history who has caught more passes in a 2-year period and done less with those receptions than Wandell. Is that all his fault? Probably not. But my goodness, for the amount of times he's been thrown to and the amount of times he's caught the ball, the number of touchdowns and the yards after the catch just aren't there. I mean, so to me, he's just a guy that sometimes you're like, whoa, maybe he'd be better if he had better people around him. But he's certainly not like somebody I would go to, wow, that was a really great draft pick. I think he's all right, but I don't think he's great. Slayton was a huge mistake. The kicking situation you've already brought up. They have drafted a lot of offensive linemen, and the only one who looks like who might have a future here, well, Schmitz is having a decent year, and Marcus Bowe, but the other linemen that they drafted. So you look at the roster, and you're like, there's some places where it's stronger, but there are other places where it's like, you've had 4 years and this is what you've come up with. And now they've got a rookie quarterback and they're up against the cap again. So I just don't think there's enough there to say, bring them back. The counter argument, and then I'll stop. The counter argument is and it's a valid one, is they put all these people in place. They got this system now up and running. Do you want to clean house again before it bears fruit? The big question being, will it bear fruit or not? But that's the thing where probably the Maras are thinking about right now are like, do we really want to just sweep it all out again and start from scratch? Because then we got to start all over again. I think that's the dilemma, but you don't want to chase a bad investment by just because what's that old saying with investment? You don't throw good money after bad money. It's kind of like that. So.
Yeah. Well, and so a couple of things that I'm trying to keep track of chat too. I do have it on the screen as well, but I'm keeping track of. So I'm going to get back to Master Mariner. I'm going to get back to you in a minute on your thing with Wandell. The thing with Shane, what's interesting is he's compiling the list. It always makes me feel like when the Giants. I mean, it's almost like we've been dragging them into the 21st century, right? Like they've been kicking and screaming, but then they see stuff and they're like, oh, and it's stuff that everybody else already had, but they're like, oh my God. Can you imagine like John Mara was like, we got to get a list of coaches, and he pulls out his Rolodex and and Joe Shane's like, oh, whoa. Got it right here on a tablet. And he's like, oh my God, we got to keep you. I do worry that's I'm with you that I think if you've decided, I kind of have a weird feeling they already did, though. I think the decision's already been made. I think the other part, the medical part, is what kept it from. If you throw everything out at that moment, what really was going to happen? What are you doing? You weren't opening the door to interview people right then anyway. They just didn't seem to be even bothering to start talking to people. You tell the team, everybody on the coaching staff is gone. You tell the team, the general manager's gone. So now it can become chaos.
Right.
And maybe it already was. You can see it a little bit. I wonder where the edict came down that says, get Abdul Carter in line, get him to kind of, we can't have this, he's too good of a, and they kind of, because it sounds like Dayball was doing, again, we don't know, but word is that Dayball had fined him a couple of times, but that obviously didn't change anything. So if you got rid of everybody, you've told, God, this is going to sound bad the way I'm going to say this. You've told the inmates the asylum is being run by them. You guys can just do whatever the hell you want, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the year, we'll bring somebody in, he'll clean it all up. The Giants aren't going to be like that. They're not going to want to have that be seen. I think they were trying to tamp it down.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you mean, are you saying this is why they haven't announced he's been fired already?
Correct. Yes. Okay. I think Joe Schoen, I think his press conference was pretty telling. It seemed obvious that he didn't have a whole lot of answers, and just saying things like, we already have heard that people are interested in this job, blah, blah, blah. But it was a weird press conference. It was odd. The John Mara thing throws a big monkey wrench into all of this.
Oh, a ginormous monkey wrench. We talked about that. And if you guys haven't seen it, watch was it the previous one or the two podcasts ago? The one
I think it was two ago that we first talked about it to the degree that we did.
The whole rumors about his health and all that. Yeah. So, sorry.
No, you're fine. And so that bothers me that the media guys, they're not asking.
No.
And again, you can say, well, maybe they know, so they don't, but that's okay. You still ask the question to be told, listen, it's not something we're going to address right now.
Exactly.
Right? You got to at least ask them that,
because you got to get that answer out there. And now that answer would be telling in itself. So because if he was fine, they wouldn't give you that answer. They'd say he's fine. Or
right. They would shoot it down. Listen, he's fine. Right. He's dealing with his treatments, but we went from the rumor. Okay. So we went from beating the Eagles on a Thursday night. Brian Daboll gives the game ball to that tough son of a bitch who's been battling. And I'm using his words, pulling him in slightly.
And he did not look good in that video.
No, and he didn't say anything either. He said he's been doing chemo and doing radiation.
There's another version of that where he does speak. I didn't see it. Somebody said that.
But we haven't seen him since, right?
Yeah.
And then the following week, we have the meltdown in Denver. The rumors come out, and they were by people that I don't normally trust. Now I'm beginning to think that they probably had heard something, is that there was a meltdown within the Giants organization that they were going to fire Daboll.
33 points in the fourth quarter.
Which is weird to go from a Thursday to the following Sunday where you just beat the Eagles, you have a meltdown, and you want to fire the guy. But that says to me everything that you and I had talked about before and what I had believed all along, which was once they decided Shane was coming back, it was Mara, Shane, and whoever else is part of that discussion that then met with Daboll. And that's where the agreement came that Daboll was coming back. And that seemed to be tied to his results in the Colts game.
Well, why do you think Shane lobbied or supported Daboll coming back last December? Do you think when he was in the room, do you think he was agnostic, or did you think he said no?
I think if his job was still on the line, he would have been more leaning with whatever he thought John Mara was going to do. I think knowing, again,
we don't know.
We're just putting the pieces
together.
Your opinion. No, in my opinion, if he knew his job was secure, and it does now seem like that is the case, then going into that meeting, he probably wants to keep things together with his guy. Because if you start all over, the new guy is going to get a bit of a pass. You might not. And that new guy coming in might be like, listen, I'm going to do this, but you got to get me the players that I want. You got to, you know what I mean? Now the light's only on Shane versus the new coach who's going to get more of a free pass. Daboll, the light shines still on him. And I think that Shane was hoping this would work out that way. And I think they both counted on the Jackson Dart piece.
See, well, the reason I'm asking this, John, is that's another determining factor. If Joe Shane said, I support and encourage you to bring back Brian Daboll, that was another huge mistake. So, I mean, again, you got to like pros and cons. You have the balancing, should you bring him back or not? So the thing is I'm just so tired of it. I'm a San Fran Giants fan, said when I posted that we were going to do this, and I said we were having our bitch fest, and there were a couple of responses, Blue 21 and him were like, I'm past bitching. I'm at apathy. And I think that's where a lot of Giants fans, I know I feel very apathetic, that when we were on the doing the game live last week, I was like, you want to turn this off? Because, and the more I thought about it after we got off, I'm so glad I got off. I was so pissed off in the last minute 40 of that set. They went from going to possibly taking the lead because they made them punt and maybe getting a field goal or even a touchdown to take the lead to just an epic disaster in 100 seconds. And to the point where I'm like, you couldn't have done worse in 100 seconds than you just did. And it's just so depressing. And this team, again, it's not like it doesn't have talent and you see it, but they just don't know how to win. They don't know how to win. And what you've talked about weighs on my mind now are the Dexter Carters of the world just so broken by
Dexter Lawrence.
I'm sorry, Dexter Lawrence.
you went diminutive running back. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
The Dexter Lawrences of the world just broken because they're just so tired and beaten down to the losing.
Right. Yeah.
And it just, and I worry about are they gonna take away Dart's mojo? Dart's not used to this shit. It's like that. I still think back to that expression with when Koo hit the kick, in the thing, and he said, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Welcome to the new New York Giants, Jackson Dart, because this is what they didn't used to be like this. They weren't like this when John and I were
even when we were bad under Dan Reeves. It wasn't embarrassingly pathetic like this.
Right. Except his last year here. But you're correct. Yeah.
Well, and that year he
was a lame duck.
It was ridiculous at that point.
Yeah.
But and even under Jim Fossil, even some of the bad years under Jim Fossil, where, by the way, he made chicken salad out of chicken shit at quarterback. I mean, when Danny Cannell at one point is, you're like, yes. I mean, we literally put Tommy Maddox out there one time. It was pretty bad for a stretch. And then for him to turn Kerry Collins around and that kind of turn, anyway, we don't need to go through that whole thing, but this has just been so epically bad. And to me this year, what really stands out is a couple things. You played well against a number of the top teams in this league.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers, the Broncos up until the very end, and even still the very end. The only thing that was bad is your goddamn defense. Overall, you still put up a ton of points on that defense that most teams do not.
That was impressive. We don't have a lot of talent at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Before we sort of like really started, even when we were losing in the mid part of the season, we were in the games, and I was surprised that we were actually scoring. But now, anyway, sorry. No,
you're fine. So you took Philadelphia on that Thursday night in a game that, yes, Philadelphia did not play its best. It's a short week. But the one thing about that game that you can't change, no matter what you want to say, like, oh, this could have happened or Philadelphia didn't do that, the Giants physically manhandled them in the second half of that game.
Yes,
they imposed their will on them and said, and that was tied with Dart and Scattaboo and that Giants offensive line. And we just said, you know what? You're not winning this game.
And that hadn't been done against Philadelphia by us in a long time.
And you wonder, how, again, with a bunch of young guys and guys with a history of losing. So you got young guys and then some guys with a history of losing. Slayton, Dexter Lawrence, those guys have been here the entire time that this streak going back to even, Lawrence came in with Daniel Jones, right? So you can't just blame that whole time on Daniel Jones. Lawrence was here. Slayton was here. Those guys are here. So those guys are still here. You got these young guys. You had the balloon was inflating. I mean, it was inflating until the fourth quarter of Denver. Then it collapsed. Then some shit behind the scenes, I think, started to really come up. And then, we have leads and we blow the leads. And then Dart. So right now you've got a team. My biggest problem with this team, though, overall, and it showed up in that game, is I don't want to hear anybody say, well, Carmen Bracillo should be brought back automatically. Yes, he's a good coach. And if the Giants bring him back, I'm 100% okay with it. I'm also 100% okay if he's not. Why? Because every one of these coaches has been part of this goddamn losing streak and everything else that's been going on for the last couple of years. This team is made up of losers. I'm okay if we change out everybody. You have first and goal from the 1 and you don't score. What is happening? The Giants don't have a system.
What's happening?
They don't have a system. That's the thing that bugs me the most. That's why if you get a coach, I want a coach that has a system, a proven system of whatever he does. And then you get players that fit that system. That way, teams with systems like that, San Francisco, Minnesota. Now, I know the record's not great this year, but let's be honest, they've had a lot of upheaval at quarterback, but the last few years, they had upheaval at quarterback, and they still win. Teams with systems, the Rams are another team with systems. When guys get hurt, why do you think they keep winning and they don't have such a huge fall off? It's not that the talent is different. Obviously, talent at the starting level is different than second, your second team, your third team. It's because it's a system that's designed to not expose these guys' flaws. It's to take advantage of whatever they can do. They fit the system. The Giants don't have a system. They have whatever game plan schemes that they want to run, and then they've got these guys that are almost Jackson Dart is the actual epitome of what I'm saying. You count on their ability to kind of make it happen on their own. Not that the system could do it. So if Jackson goes down and Jameis Winston comes in, you're now running completely different plays than you were when Jackson Dart was in there.
And I think Cy talked about that in his last game review, that he hopes that the new coaches will have a system in place that take advantage of the things that Jackson does well. And Cy specifically mentioned those things that he does well. Right. So I think that's important. Look, I think it's important to sort of reflect a little bit on how the season went, in that there was one impressive thing about this team that unfortunately didn't bear fruit except for a game. And that is they had some really bad string of heartbreaking losses. I mean, I'm talking even going back to the Saints, things that if this happened or that happened, they would have won, they should have won. But they rebounded from all of those bad losses, all those heartbreaking losses for a big bulk of the season to play well the following week. They came up short, but they were in the game. They were in games against teams that are playoff bound or battling for the playoffs now. And that they kept that up for a while, and then the roof kind of collapsed the last few games. So they had some fight in them. They just don't know how to get over the hump. I think coaching's part of that. I saw Paul Kelly earlier mention that Carl Banks said if Bill Parcells was with this team, it would win 11 games. I think coaching has been a huge issue since Tom Coughlin has left. And I think players have been a huge issue too, but so has coaching. And my wife and I were talking about this week. I don't talk a ton of football with her because, again, it's depressing right now with the Giants. But she said to me, without me prompting her, she said they need to get somebody who's going to crack the whip here. So she again, when you and I were watching the game, she was off to the side. She had her phone. She was kind of paying attention, shaking her head. She was laughing at our reactions to things, but she's aware of what's going on. And her non-expert, like I'm always paying attention view of this team is they don't have a strong personality leading this franchise from the coaching position. And I thought that was remarkable for her to say that because she's not really paying that much attention. I agree with her, but I was like, my reaction to that is they need a Bill Parcells, they need a Tom Coughlin, but do those kinds of coaches, can they survive in today's NIL spoiled athlete era? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure what kind of coach you got to get in here. I do know this: we can't have another guy that's like treats us as a country club. He's got to be some fear into these guys, but he's got to walk some balancing act where the guys don't hate to play for him too. So it's interesting. Parcells, a lot of players did not like playing for him. They'll talk about him with a great deal of fondness now because they won. Sure. But at the time, there were people that just didn't like. And Tom Coughlin, we know that too. Tom Coughlin, the old story was he changed his ways and he had the players committee and he did all that stuff. I think that some of that's overblown too, but and that was before NIL. So
yes.
You know, these guys are coming out now and they're already kind of financially set, or should be financially set. And it's just, how do you motivate some of these guys? That's why I do like Dart. I hope he pans out, because Dart's personality seems to me as a guy that's going to compete no matter what he gets paid. But I think there are a lot of athletes out there that once they get that contract, the fire dies down in them. So, John, I don't know, but I think we need to look, when we look at the coaches that are out there, who's a little bit tougher. But I also think there's going to be a huge bias by owners, whoever the owner is going to be, to not take a chance and play it safe. And that could not be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, or it could be a good thing. So again, we've talked about this before. McCarthy's got a track record. He's not at the top of my list, but I could see very easily that somebody in the room, be it whoever the new owner is going to be, saying, you know what, we just can't take another chance again. We've got to play it safe. We got to at least have somebody who keeps us from being an embarrassment. And I'm kind of like with Cy, when Cy wrote, the goal is to win a Super Bowl. And if you play it safe and you don't get there, then what's this all about? But there's financial considerations here. There's morale issues. There's a stadium that's empty every December now. I mean, every year now, we get to December, except the 2016 season and the 2022 season, the stadium's empty. So I like your thoughts on the coaching thing, because I'm it's that, do you go for the home run and get the guy that hasn't done it, or do you play it safe and, because you can't afford to swing and miss again?
It's a tough and interesting dilemma. But here's the funny thing. I think it doesn't matter. I think what truly will matter is whatever you put in place, it has to be all in. Even if you get a retread, it's got to be all in. That dude.
What does that mean, though? What do you mean by all in?
I'll get to it. Just like, that dude's got to come in. He's got to bring all the guys that he wants to bring in, and he's got to get the players that he wants, which means you got to give him what he wants, right? So if you've got somebody doing the shopping, as Parcells used to say, and you've got somebody in the kitchen organizing, the guy doing the shopping better be getting the ingredients that the guy who's going to be putting it together wants. That's what has to happen. All in
doing that, don't you think?
Well, no, I don't. I don't actually. I think they listen to the coaches.
Banks, Dable wanted Dart. I think they've been doing
that. That's different. You went and got the guy for the defensive coordinator who doesn't get along with the head coach. You got him the corner pieces. I want a puzzle. I want the whole puzzle. It all has to be all in. So my point, though, is this. The Giants have done this multiple times. Ray Perkins was a first-time NFL head coach, right? Ray Perkins decides to leave. The Giants move once again, first-time coach, Bill Parcells, up. They were going to fire him after that first season. We know it. We've talked to multiple people. We know that that's true. Ultimately, they didn't get the opportunity who they wanted, so they stayed with him, and that happened to work out. Parcells leaves. The Giants
more than work out.
The Giants elevate a guy from their staff who had never been a head coach to head coach. That did not work out. They go and get the retread in Dan Reeves. It worked out spectacularly well for 1 year. But there were a lot of things that he got a lot of his players from Denver, but there was kind of, I think, some clashing with George Young. They weren't really going in it. And then there's the whole wasting the draft pick on Dave Brown, which really didn't make sense at the time, the way they did it. It was one of those things, again, where I think they competed against themselves and they went and did it. They go on from Dan Reeves to another first-time coach in Jim Fossil. That works out extremely well. The thing you have to look at with a lot of these things, though, right? Whether they're a disciplinarian, whether they're a country club guy, I'm all for disciplinarian because the country club didn't work. But you can have a melding of the two, right? You can have a tough guy who's player-centric. That works. All of that works or doesn't work for a period of time based on the results on the field. If you start to lose, I don't give a shit if you're a disciplinarian or you handhold these guys at the country club. You're not going to get the results after a while. It's not going to matter. They don't care. And then it becomes paycheck. Right now, the Giants are a losing organization. If I come here, it's strictly about the money. And you don't care. That's why I'm okay if you move on from a Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence at this point, he can't really ultimately care that much. I mean, does he? Like each year, it's like, we're fucking losing again. Like, here we go. He's given it all. He's also a 340-pound defensive tackle, probably closer to 350, depending on where he is in the middle of the season. That's going to wear you down, and when you start losing, the wearing down becomes more. It just does. And so I think really, whatever they do, when I say it has to be all in. You can't go get a Mike McCarthy and then still have Joe Shane kind of doing whatever, and we're going to piecemeal this, and we're just going to work around what Jackson had, and we're going to kind of keep the same defense. We don't want to change it to it. No, you change everything. You do everything that you want to do. I don't care what it is. Nobody else has a say that tells
so you're talking all in. You're basically saying let the coach
has got to be able to put in whatever he wants to do. You can't bring a guy in and go, well, like when Joe Judge was here and they kind of forced Garrett on him as the offensive coordinator. They fire the offensive line coach because Colombo, there was a fight with him. I mean, it's that kind of bullshit. It has to be that guy's staff.
What kind of team has 2 offensive line coaches in one season?
I mean, what one has an offensive line coach that takes his shot at his head coach?
I know. I still don't know. And again, I just don't know how much ownership. When I say ownership, I'm talking about the relatives, everyone who's related to each other, have influenced and affected and overridden the decision makers on this team. Maybe they haven't done it that much. I'm under the impression that they certainly did it with some key players like Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones. That's my opinion. I don't have anything firm to back that up, but
now, are you strictly talking 22?
Yes.
Or after that?
Yeah. And so, are they still pulling the strings? Are they going to pull the strings? So, is Shane limited in himself? Is Shane have to run things by? I mean, they always say they run things by the owner, who was, John Mara, and I assume right now, because of his health, they're running by Chris and McDonald. I assume maybe others. Are they allowing him to do that, or are they saying no way? I don't think we should do that. I don't know, John.
Well,
and
we know
that influences all of this too, because it gets into your all-in thing. Because you can say Shane needs to allow the coach to be all in, but are the other people above Shane allowing the coach to be all in, or are they? So I don't know. I mean,
I was going to ask you kind of a weird question in the other direction, but real quick, we do know at least this, and this has been a weird theme this year, which again goes back to what happened at the end of last year. What happened in those individual meetings, first with Shane, then with Daboll, with Shane and the ownership? What was discussed, what was said, what was happening there that everybody covered their own ass this year? After the third game, after losing to the Chiefs, Brian Daboll comes out and says, Jackson Dart's our quarterback. It's my decision. 100% my decision. Clearly setting himself aside from Joe Shane, setting himself aside from management, ownership. I am the guy. Joe Shane has his press conference and then basically tells the world ownership fired Brian Daboll. When asked again, all he said was, I support ownership, but ownership made the decision.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So is Joe Shane a puppet? But
who let Saquon Barkley go this past? They could have offered Saquon Barkley any dollar amount that he wanted to stay if they absolutely were going to keep him. They could have.
Right.
They didn't. They didn't do that. So if John Mara truly was interfering with everything, then he could have made it right there. He picks up the phone. He calls Saquon.
No.
He says, Saquon, how much money do you want? We'll get it done.
And we saw that in Hard Knocks. But my question is, the year before that,
I agree. But we've debated that a lot.
What I got out of Hard Knocks was, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, is that Shane didn't really want Saquon here, I don't think, the year before. He didn't come out and say that, but his disdain for paying the running back just seemed to me, and the way that whole 20, I know and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because you and I have talked about it over and over and over again. But the way that 2022, the following the
23
off season went was just set this whole thing up for failure. But again, let's get into that. The long story short is Dable hasn't worked out. He's been fired. Shane hasn't worked out. Is he going to be fired? If they don't fire him, is that going to discourage certain coaches from coming here? If John Mara passes away, is that going to discourage certain coaches from coming here? Everything right now seems to be unsettled and too quiet. And usually quiet is good, but it's almost too quiet. And there are things like there was a great thread by somebody who went to the game last week and wrote down a really good piece on his experience there and how MetLife sucks and the way it's managed sucks, and going from, the way that food is provided, the way the stadium's set up, the people that work there. It just, the whole operation, and I don't know how much really the Giants have an impact or influence on the way the day-to-day operations of MetLife go, but you would think they would have some influence because they're one of the main tenants. It just seems like everything is related to this organization right now is shitty. You know what I mean? It just, when you go into a restaurant or you go into a business or, retailer or anything, we're all customers. When you go into some places and you just you're there and you're like, you know what, this operation just isn't run well. Nothing in here makes sense. I don't understand why they operate the way they do. The customer service sucks. The management seems to be, the employees aren't good. And you can do any business. We all have worked for companies, and I'm sure many of us have worked for multiple companies. And when you're in a company that just isn't run well. I've always been under the impression that the Giants were a family-owned business, that they were fairly, they had ups and downs, but they were fairly run well, and flagship franchise, all that. Right now, I get this gnawing feeling that right now that they're a bloated, inefficient, rudderless organization that doesn't seem to do anything correctly. Going back to the free Pepsi stuff, the stuff that they tweet out on a daily basis that seems to be completely out of touch with the fan base feels, to the way that they make the team, to the stadium, to everything. It just seems right now everything related to this team. I mean, I'll put it on you. What about this team, and even outside the football operation, is there anything that you look at and you go, wow, the Giants really are doing something well there? Any marketing things? Are there anything that right now you're proud of them that they do?
Well, no. And you and I know a little bit more than some folks. Just our talk alone, and I hate to drop his name the way I'm going to, but just our talk alone with Leonard Marshall, some of the bullshit that he had to go through, just even have the fact that his name being included in in the list, and Ring of Honor stuff, and just him, the Giants kind of backing him a little bit overall with some of the things he's doing. Just no, I think sometimes I had to be careful how I say this too, because I live in that environment at the moment. When you work for a company owned by a family, it can be a very good company as far as like its people, how it feels about its people, or it thinks it feels about its people. Let's put it that way. But it's very difficult to get them to move out of, this is how we do it. So the fact that we make this big deal about, look at our new TV screens and our computers and our this and that, that's top, that's like top level kind of shit. That's not deep level. That's just surface. That doesn't mean anything. That just looks good. So you think, oh, we did this, look how great we now are. No, you were dragged into today, but that doesn't mean you've changed your process. They have a very schizophrenic mindset about things that I have yet to be able to really figure out what it is, how they get there and why they get there. The big one is, if you ever hear John Mara say, I don't get involved in some things about players or whatever, unless
that's a lie.
But he says unless there's a character issue, and then I'll weigh in.
I don't believe that.
But even if it's true, then explain to me how you effing red flag Micah Parsons, but you're okay with Kadarius Toney. That makes no sense whatsoever. What crazy world told you that one person was worse than the other, and one is an all-pro now in the NFL? The other one, well, we haven't seen him on a police blotter. So
does anyone have a Kadarius Toney record? Oh. So there are two things that I'm so tired of hearing about when the Giants say these things. One is we had a great week of practice.
Oh my
I don't
God.
want to hear that anymore. We've heard that for 12 years.
Jesus.
That doesn't mean jack shit to me anymore. And the other is we're going to look at everything. I'm paraphrasing. They'll say they reevaluate and look at everything. And they're not doing that. Nor if they're doing that from the perspective of somebody who's covering their ass. They're not sitting back and going, wow, the way we're doing this is just not working. They're not doing that.
Well, let me ask you, Eric, like if you were in finance, I believe, to a degree, right?
Trade, international.
Okay, all right. So let's say you put together this whole report and this recommendation, and you put all these pieces together, and I get it, and I go, okay, I need this to be QA'd before we do it. I need to make sure everything in here is good, and I give it back to you and go, check it over, Eric, and tell me if it's good. When you look at everything, you are the same person that put all that shit in there in the first place. You're just going, yep. We're looking at everything. And you always pick the things that are so easy. Oh, that guy's got to go. He has like no real effect on the outcome of games. He might be a position coach. We're going to fire that guy. Even if you fire the coach, okay, then you just go get another coach. But all the shit behind the scenes is the same. That's the problem.
I apologize. I don't think I'm getting anyone in hot water here, and I apologize. I'm not going to name names. I'm sure the person's in chat. It's minor things like the top 100 list. Remember, when you had the 100-year, they supposedly formed a committee. The way they did, they formed a committee to come up with the top 100. I heard from somebody who's very well connected with these types of things that many of the committee's decisions were overridden by a single person in ownership. So he basically didn't listen to the committee that said we should have these players in this order. He just picked his own favorites. So that's what I'm talking about. If they're doing that with things like that, are they doing it with more important things? And that's where I'm talking about the self-reflection thing, where they say what you just talked about. If the crook is policing himself,
right? I got it.
Or the what's the old the wolf in the hen house or whatever. The wolf's not gonna. So it's just, again, I don't want to be too depressing about here, but these are the things that are weighing on my mind right now. That we know there's a problem. We know there's been a problem for a long time. We know it needs to be fixed. We know they've changed owners. We know they've changed general managers, but the results don't seem to be changing. So everybody's coming to the same conclusion that the problem is above coaching. It's above the general managers. So some people are saying, sell the team. Well, that's not going to happen. Well, we might not have. You and I talked about that.
Yeah, that's a good.
And if they're not going to sell the team, somebody up above has got to have the come to Jesus moment and say, what we're doing isn't working. We're Costanza. Whatever we decide, and I know I keep bringing this up, but whatever they do, it's backwards. So, again, I don't know where to go from this.
Paul has a question that I think you have the answer to as far as that goes.
Oh, I don't know. That's a fantastic question. Again, we've talked about this. My understanding, and John and I talked about this again, it was the last episode, the episode before, I think it was the episode before, is the Koch brothers have a 10% non-controlling share. So what was it? The franchise is valued roughly at $10 billion right now, and they bought and it was $1 billion investment. What wasn't that?
Yes.
What it was?
Yes.
Yeah. So
10%
we don't even know
non-voting, I
what
thought.
that infusion of cash goes to. Was that just a payoff to the Tishes and the Maras? Does any of that go into the actual operation? I don't even, if there's been articles on this, I haven't seen it. Everything's behind a paywall now, anyways. I mean, and I'm not subscribing to all this stuff, even when it's $1. So if people out there in chat have seen this, but I don't even know what that infusion of cash has been going to.
Well, now it makes you wonder with the other thing that you've heard about the day-to-day financial stuff,
yeah.
that infusion of cash may have been that part of it. So people confuse the Giants themselves have X amount of dollars for sure. The salaries, all that shit is all determined, as they're coming into the season. They got the cap. They know what they're paying. A lot of it has already been paid out. A lot of these guys have already been paid. So what you see, these huge inflated numbers, a lot of the money has already been paid. It's just what counts against this year. The day-to-day game checks, that's different, and that does get paid out throughout the season. And I'm beginning to wonder, you heard that there's been maybe some cash issues, but it explains so much of the ridiculous nature of which we've played with the practice squad. When you bring guys up, and I don't want to hear any bullshit. I'm tired of people arguing points just because they want to argue with somebody else. If you want to argue with me, fine, but it's a stupid point to argue. Little Jordan Humphrey was already on the team. You already brought him up. You used him. The first effing game you played him, he led the team in receiving that game. He was a guy you were looking to.
Now he can block. At the very least, he can block.
He was a difference maker. Yeah. He was there throughout the summer. He gave you a size difference you didn't have. Boom. But you used him 3 times and you didn't want to add his salary to the thing. So now you just drop him on the practice squad and you're like, we're not bringing him up. You then go and get
Ray
McLeod. Ray McLeod. Yeah. You use him a couple of times and then drop him back down. Yeah, that was Ray.
Yeah.
Drop him back down to the practice squad. Ultimately, you get injuries. Then you have to go and sign Isaiah Hodgins off the Steelers practice squad and put him on the roster. You already had little Jordan Humphrey. You could have just had him there. By the way, I don't want to hear it. Look at how great Isaiah Hodgins was. His play has fallen off a cliff.
Oh yeah, he had one game. It's kind of like what he did when he came in that 2022. He was like, "Wow,
these guys are limited," and there's a reason why. But the Giants already had a guy. Well, here's one other thing. You got Smith and Marset still sitting on a freaking practice squad the entire year. You've had an issue at kick returner almost every week. Somebody's been injured.
We haven't talked about it, but that Javon Holland had an impact in the loss last week because that punt return was a bad punt return that set up part of the minute 40. I mean, so they went into that weekend thinking Gunner was going to play. They screwed that up too. Why wouldn't you bring Amir up? Because if Gunner's even borderline, it's similar to the kicker situation when they got screwed against the Commanders the previous year when they thought Gano would be able to go. He couldn't go, and they were screwed, and they did it with the Javon Holland thing again. So even the sport, like Dan Duggan was like, oh, my God, they weren't assuming this was going to happen. So,
by the way, for me, the NFL just needs to just address this issue right now. If you have a concussion, you cannot play the following week. Protocol should be that you can clear and play a game later.
If it's a legitimate concussion.
But if you're taken out for a concussion, that means they determined you had a concussion. Yeah. So regardless, this idea of, well, we're hoping he clears protocol by Saturday, I'm like, Jesus, that's cutting it close. If this guy was questionable on Friday, what makes you think Saturday is like, hey, you know what? He's better. We can take a few shots at the head.
I want to address this real quick, too, because this is really pissing me off. And this has nothing to do with the Giants. I mean, it does, but it's not a Giants issue. Fuck all the national reporters who are making a big deal out of Jackson Dart and concussions. Jackson Dart has had 1 concussion. 1. He's been tested, I think it's 5 times, and most of those, if not all of the other ones, were bogus in the first place. They were like, even, he wasn't even like woozy or anything like that. But the narrative has been out there all week. Oh my goodness. I see it all over social media. I assume it's all over like ESPN and
it's everywhere.
Like that. Yep. Oh my goodness, Jackson Dart and concussions. So this thing is out there now that's becoming a life of its own. And I'm afraid that now officials are looking for something that's not even there. And it did affect us in the game last week when he had to come out for those 2 plays in the goal line. And that was bullshit too. Now, part of that too is like, like Cy has talked about, why are you running Jackson Dart again on these power goal line runs? I don't have a problem with the quarterback sneak. I'm a big fan of
and it did sound like it was Dart's choice. It was supposed to be a passer option. He chose to just run it. I'll say this.
Just sneak it. If you're first and go from the 1 and you want to run,
well, just something where you're not going to take a blatant, drill to the head. You just duck behind your lineman and push forward.
And you can get hurt on a sneak, but it doesn't normally happen, and it's a safe play.
Everything that you said a minute ago about the narrative, I'm 100% for. Here's where I'm going to say, though, I don't know if I totally agree on this particular one. I've watched that play again a couple of times. Dart drops the ball. He gets hit in the head. His head turns. He drops the ball. He's kind of just reaching for the ball, and he does get it back. He lays on his back for a minute, and he's kind of like puts his hands back down and puts his hands back up for people to get him up. If I'm watching that, and I know this guy's got a head issue, he's been concussed before, I'm going, oh shit, we got to get. He just took it. He brought it on himself. When he laid on the ground and he put his hands up and then brought him back down, he kind of looked like he was not totally with it that moment.
I get that.
So he's got to be careful because he's been hit before where he puts his hands on his head. The Charger game, he put his hand up on his head after he gave the stupid stiff arm, and that was dumb.
But he has only been concussed.
Yes, I agree. But you bring it on yourself.
Yes. That I agree with you. But what I'm talking about is the reporters, and they're supposed to be professionals, should do a little homework and say, hey, you know what? He's only actually been concussed 1 time.
Right.
But everyone's reacting to this. If you went on social media on X last week or this past week, it was all national reporters saying, oh my goodness, this is serious. This is potentially a career impacting type of situation. And then all the replies were like memes and stuff about Jackson Dart and having this concussion problem for the rest of his life. And if you ask an average fan who doesn't follow the Giants, and probably a lot of fans who do follow the Giants, they think he's prone to concussions.
Sure.
And that's not been the case. So, I mean, I'm just so disgusted by that narrative that's out there.
I will say one thing they need to teach him. And I don't know if it's just arrogance. I don't know if it's just the way he does what he's doing. You get to the sideline, do not slow down as you're going out. Get out. Because these guys know that if you slow down, they're coming to hit you. Washington in Hard Knocks, made a point. They made a point to say, by the way, the Giants better be saying the goddamn same thing about Jaden Daniels. When he runs, he's a running back. You drill him. You hit him. I don't care where he is. You hit him. If you're not, then you're letting other guys do to you what you won't do to them.
Right.
So get out of bounds. Because when you tiptoe down the sidelines and think I'm just going to step out a little further down, and that's what happened against New England, you got blasted. Get out of bounds. He did slide in the previous game. That was good. The one thing that I'll say, if you want to be worried about anything with Jackson Dart, is that he has a tendency, and I said it during the game a couple times, he has a tendency to want to do these like sort of fade back off his foot and just kind of lob pass. Can't do that. You can't do that. These guys are too good. They're going to break on that ball. And in Giant Stadium later in the season, or MetLife now, whatever the stupid tin can is, the wind there is not going to let you just do that the way he's been doing it.
People that were there last Sunday all said the wind in the first half was nuts, and it affected the kickers too. Though, what a stupid decision to have Koo kick 250-yarders. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, John. This team is so stupid.
It made no sense whatsoever. It literally did no sense.
He can't. I mean, especially in those conditions. And again, we talked about it. He was let go by Atlanta because he was having problems in a dome stadium. And people that were there said in warmups he was having trouble or not hitting from 40 yards out. The coaches, the special teams coaches, always watch the kickers, or they're supposed to, during warmups to determine how they're doing. Why the hell would they say, "Oh my goodness, he's not hitting 40-yarders. We're going to have him to attempt a 51-yarder"? I mean,
Well,
it's
in his defense,
stupid.
In his defense in Atlanta, they really cranked up the AC a couple of times, and I think it was just
It's just John. It's a stupid team.
Well, you and I saw it's the second they trotted him out there. I'm like, there is no way he's making this kick.
No, and we all knew it. It's like, all right, you just gave Washington that field position. You just gave it to them.
So we wanted to keep this somewhat tight. So let's kind of just quickly focus. This game to me is a scary one for me a little bit.
It's going to be a blowout.
No. That's not the point. It's a scary one to me is because Brian Flores still has an issue with the Giants, and he's going to bring the house.
Yeah.
He is going to bring the house on Dart. I think the Giants need to be very smart with Dart in this game. They can't. He's got to play against guys. I mean, you're just going to have to learn. That's part of it. But don't risk him in a season when you're a 2-win team. And by the way, we're at the top of the draft order, which we can talk about in a sec. Don't risk him on call. Like, get away from calling design shit for him right now. I want him to throw out of the pocket a little bit more. Let him move around, but I don't want him just when you're doing things in practice where he's running way over here and around, and they showed it on Hard Knocks, round and then way over there. If those are your plays suck. Yeah. That completely means you're hoping he's Fran Tarkenton on this play and that it's going to make it happen. But that only works once or twice. Sometimes he runs around, i.e. San Francisco, where he runs around and then he gets bare and the guy who went way behind him is now coming back and absolutely obliterates him. You got to protect him, and Minnesota and Flores is going to come after him like there's no tomorrow.
Look, I've said this from before the season that if Jackson Dart played this year, he was going to have his ups and downs and he was going to have his growing pains. The thing that I've been amazed with him this year is he hasn't had that many growing pains. His game last Sunday, while I was watching it, I was like, especially early on when he was like you were saying, he was lofting a lot of those passes in the wind.
Slayton still has to catch that.
This is going to be his bad game. But when the game was over, now I didn't like how he ended it, but when the game was over, again, with these wide receivers, his stats, and I know people say stats are for losers, his stats were good. In a game that he supposedly did poorly, in a game where Slayton dropped 2 passes that
one's a touchdown. It's in his hands.
And fuckface Jalen Hyatt, we learned, caused the interception.
I told you he did not. When we saw that play, what I say? He ran that really soft.
And that's come out since. So asshole, again, like Cy said, and Cy's got an edge to him now. Cy has always impressed me with being very professional, very even keel. But the stupidity and the incompetence I can tell is starting to wear on him in his game reviews, and I think it's a good thing too. Because we got to call a spade at this point. It's bad, just bad football. And he said Jalen Hyatt, and I agree with him, should never see the field again. He should never see that. They shouldn't even put him out. They should be inactive for the last few games. His career here is done. He's a bust. Maybe he goes on and does something someplace else. I doubt it, but he should never play here again. And for some guy who, I had a feeling when they were starting to put him on the inactive list earlier in the year, he was going to mail it in, and he mailed it in. To me, you know how you've talked about Deonte Banks, and it pisses you off to no end that he won't come up and tackle. Yeah. It pisses me off to no end when a wide receiver quits, and we've seen that with the Dallas guy Pickens, who's a good player.
Oh, that was weird. Yeah,
I don't want anything to do with a wide receiver who quits, because that's how interceptions going the other way happen. And I don't want anything. I don't want that person even on my team. And remember, you've been off the Jalen Hyatt bandwagon way before me. You were like, Eric, he sucks. You were like that with Deonte Banks too. I don't want anything to do with them. And I was like, well, let's give him a chance. No. Done. Get him off my team. He shouldn't even be here. They should cut him. I don't even know he's in to cut him. Cut him right now.
I mean,
I don't want him on the team. He's a loser.
Well, here's the thing, right? Who was it? Was it Tim Kelly that came out this week, and one of them, when they were talking, say, Hyatt really works hard during the week. He puts in. I'm thinking, that's the whole practice thing again.
Yeah,
we had a great week of practice.
You're either lying or you're an idiot because
you got blown out by 35. And by the way, if he's doing really well in practice, then I'd hate to see how bad everybody else is freaking doing.
Yeah,
he does so well in practice that you basically put him on maybe 1 or 2 plays when he's active. When he's inactive, even though you had a need at kick returner, you didn't even want him on the field. You were like, nah, we'll just make him inactive. There's nothing about him that's redeemable for this organization. I can't understand what you hold in your files that say, we got to keep this guy. Other than the game against Arizona, and we're talking in 2023, what has he done?
Oh, that was just one play, John, and that was one play.
Well, he had two plays, and one of them would have been a touchdown if Daniel Jones didn't throw him a punt. But overall, what has he done since then?
Nothing.
But your receiving core has been depleted.
He's done more
entire time than he's been there.
Good. He's done more damage than and as you said at the beginning of the podcast, he's wasting a roster spot, and he's a loser, and he's affecting the other team. Bill Parcells, when he was up in New England, had a receiver that was actually pretty good, Terry Glenn, but you remember, call her
she.
That would fly today, but back then it didn't.
Oh my God! Actually, we don't non-gender.
But Parcells would have gotten rid of Hyatt from day one. He would have said, I don't want anything to do with him. Terry Glenn at least played well. He just didn't, he wouldn't practice, and he didn't think he was a tough guy. So it's just, I don't know. There's just so much to go on. We need to get a coach that comes in here his personality is going to be so strong that he overshadows and overrides everybody else. It almost becomes it's got to be like a Tom Coughlin dominant. Tom Coughlin came in here and he was questioning. I don't remember where I saw it, but when he found out that Pat Hamlin had his own. Remember they had that round table with the giant reporter?
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do you mean our PR director has his own show?" And he read articles in Jacksonville that he wanted the walls painted different colors, and he micromanaged everything because it was just Tom Coughlin just micromanaged and was a dominating personality. You need somebody to come in here and basically say, "You guys suck. This doesn't work. I'm repainting the walls. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. We're redoing everything. And I don't like how any of this works. And if they don't get that, I'm just afraid we're going to get stuck with more of the same." You said, the groceries analogy.
Yeah, so. And I think, again, one of the things we talked about earlier, you had mentioned it because I said let him get what they want, but they've been doing it. See, that's the part that I again, when you don't have a system, you get shiny parts, right? The Giants are being run almost like in terms of like putting a team together. They're almost being run like a Christmas tree, right? They're like, oh, look at these really cool ornaments. I'm going to put this one here. And like I have down on our real tree downstairs, not our actual Christmas tree. This is my New York Giants Christmas tree for my office, which it is. It's giant. It's Giants colors and all that good stuff.
Giants, we still love you. Please do something to root for.
It's a shitty asymmetrical relationship, but so
we're in an abusive relationship right now.
So the tree downstairs, our Christmas tree downstairs, right? Kids have their own special ornaments and whatever. But you'll look on the tree and you'll see where there's some that are mine. There'll be a Giants one. There's also a Michael Scott office one. There's a Parks and Rec one, right? They all are cool. They don't go together, right? They're just kind of cool, different pieces. They don't go together. That's the Giants. They don't go together. You've got a receiving core that doesn't go together. You brought up, and I'll go back, Master Marier, I meant to come back to this a while ago, the Wan'Dale Robinson thing. Wan'Dale Robinson, yes, he catches the ball at a pretty good clip. He catches the ball. He doesn't get a lot of yardage after the fact. That's not ultimately his fault, I think. I actually blame the Giants. The Giants have a system not designed to use Wan'Dale Robinson the way like Buffalo's system was designed to use a Cole Beasley. That's a similar... they're not exactly the same, but that's kind of kind of a sort of analogy or comparison is a Cole Beasley and a Wan'Dale Robinson. Similar body size, smaller guy. Those guys need to be your third down, pick up 6-7 yards, can maybe break, can do some reverse stuff. You can get him on some inside stuff. You can use him as more of a gadget type thing throughout. When he becomes receiver number 2, and you run plays to his direction where you have him as the lead blocker, you have no fucking idea what you're doing. Like, you have put shit out there. You might as well have put a Ferrari with a snowplow. It makes absolutely no sense. And
you brought that up repeatedly throughout the year. You've brought that up and again, that's one of my problems with getting rid of little Jordan Humphrey, who, again, I was saying, again, when fans were like, little Jordan Humphrey, he's great. And I'm like, no, he's not. But Sean Payton cut him. And that's when we came to the Giants. But Sean Payton said he is a awesome blocker for us from the slot position. He's just a big physical guy who does a great job. And he came here and he did a good job at that. And so Denver brought him back off their practice squad. So if Jalen Hyatt won't do anything, why is Jalen Hyatt on this roster and little Jordan Humphrey's not on this roster?
Right.
I mean,
other than draft position, that's the only reason it's justified draft position.
It's just, and little Jordan Humphrey isn't great. And little Jordan Humphrey will struggle to make every team in the NFL, but he's on Denver. I assume he's still on Denver, right?
Yes. Yeah, he scored a touchdown last week, I believe.
When Jalen's never scored a touchdown, has he? Or did he? No.
Jameis Winston has more touchdown receptions as a New York Giant than Jalen Hyatt does.
And didn't Andrew Thomas catch a touchdown in one game?
He caught one again. Was it a touchdown or a 2-point conversion? It was against.
It might have been 2 point.
It was against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay.
So he's a better player than.
I mean, here's something else, right? Cy had it in his write up a little bit about the tight end usage last week and Daniel Bellinger, but Bellinger's still somewhat limited and whatever. I agree with that, and at the same time I disagree with that because I think most teams have guys that are kind of limited. The Giants use tight ends though very oddly.
Yes, they do. Yeah,
you get a Theo Johnson who is he's your number 1. So he's a bigger guy. He can run some. He's not totally swift and smooth, but he runs. He's got some speed.
He can get down the field. He can
get some straight speed. He's tall. He catches. He does drop from time to time, and he can block some. He's got some.
But he's not agile. He's not.
But he's your one. He's your one. Bellinger's your 2. He's your move guy. You can put him at fullback. He can legitimately play inline if necessary, and he has some receiving skills and whatever.
He's not great at it, but you can do it.
But you've got Manhurts on the team in a league that doesn't carry guys who are strictly one-dimensional only players anymore. You've got a guy who's a blocking only tight end who you almost never use anymore. Yet he's on the roster still. Why? I mean, I know
our roster's filled with people.
It makes no sense.
What are we doing?
Yeah, it makes no sense. But here's the thing. In a game in which you are already limited at receiver, a game in which, by the way, go back, Daniel Bellinger had not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive receptions. 3 plays, 3 receptions. You're moving down the field. You don't throw him the ball the rest of the game.
Yeah.
You don't even throw. They're not covering him. If they do, after 3 plays, a couple plays later, if they are going to cover him, that means somebody else is going to be open. The Giants didn't even bother to run plays designed. The reason I bring that up is if you watch the Rams and the Seahawks game, there was a point in the game where the Rams are running 3 tight ends on their team at the time.
Keep in mind, that game. I heard that was
it was a wild game.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams was out, so he was not playing. So their receiving core after Puka Nacua is pretty limited. They got a Whittington, Demarcus Robinson is on there. They're pretty limited after that. So they went 3 tight ends. So if I give you these 3 tight ends, do any of their names really ring bells for you? Terrence Ferguson, young guy coming in, sure. A Davis Allen, does that name mean anything to you?
Only Terrence
Cody Parkinson?
I was following the draft closely.
Sure. Yeah, but Cody Parkinson, no. He was a 3rd stringer with Seattle for a few years. But these guys are effective, and they're getting plays. They're getting balls thrown to them. Davis Allen had a big catch at one point where he got open on the side. Why? Because their goddamn schemes are that good that they use these players and they maximize. They don't have a guy who just sits there and all he does is block, and if he doesn't, we can't use him, so off to the sidelines he goes. Kansas City's the same way. Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, I can't even remember who the third tight end is right now. They would go 3 tight ends when the receiving core was depleted, and they're still making plays.
Right.
This is what the Giants, they get too tricky where they have guys that are very specific for something, but without that something, they're worthless.
Yeah, I agree with John. I think what you're getting at is we have had games and moments where players look like they are doing something, and then for whatever reason within that game or in following games, they don't go back to those players. And
Right.
it's very odd. And it's like, and sometimes the players do bring it upon themselves. So say Theo Johnson has a really good game, and then the next game he may drop a couple passes. That's on him. But there have been games like even with Wandell. I mean, we could go down the list where you're just like, okay, he did it that week. Why didn't we get him the ball the following week? Now, maybe there's more to it. Maybe I'm making this too simple, but it just seems to be more scatterbrained. What I'm trying to say, buckshot. I don't know. Whatever, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Shotgun approach. It seems like a shotgun. It seems like they're not. I would if and they did that with Scatterboo. So I give them credit with that. When Scatterboo, look, when we came into the season, Scatterboo wasn't the starting running back, but the coaching staff with Dable was here, Kafka obviously. They quickly realized, they like Tracy, but Scatterboo brings a different vibe, a different energy, different physicality, and they started to feed him the ball, and that had I think that he's been a huge loss to this team.
Oh, sure. I think emotionally, he and Dart kind of fed off each other. I think Dart doesn't have that piece now. And then of course, we don't even know what Dart has with Neighbors. He got basically what, one quarter?
But I think it's more than personality, which is, I think I agree with you 100% that's a gigantic part of it. But it's productivity too. He was playing the game that you talked about, Philadelphia. They didn't want anything to do with him. They didn't want anything to do with Scatterboo by the end of the game. They were like avoiding contact with him. And I love that. That's like old football. And people were saying he can't do that in the NFL. That's, he's not athletic enough. He's not big enough. He can do that at Arizona State. He's never going to do that in the NFL. Well, wrong. The problem was, people said he was going to get hurt when that ended up being right. Though the injury is, I think, is a little bit
it's a kind
different
of
than what people were thinking about. They were thinking they get, shoulder or knee.
Yeah, his physical nature with his side would wear him down.
Yeah. But I just pray he's close to 100%. My daughter is 19 years old. And she says, Dad, you are so pessimistic, because I told her, because she loves Scatterboo. She said, and she's like, he's starting to walk again. He's starting to walk. I keep telling her, I said to my daughter, I said, it's a really tough injury to come back from. And so much of his game is his ankles and bending of his ankles. And I said to her, he may never be the same again. Oh, Dad, you're so pessimistic. He'll be fine. But I worry about that with him. If he comes back 100%, and I pray he does, he's a huge part of this team moving forward. I just worry about that moving forward.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to try to rein this in. So
we should wrap this up.
Where we're at, we can finish this up within 5-10 minutes, and then we're going to call it. You just brought up something though that I think is super important. It has nothing to do with the player you're talking about. There was something said this week, yesterday, I believe it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You post these, so you would know. That has me going, holy shit, this is still an ongoing issue.
That could be anything.
When they talked about Andrew Thomas still kind of working through the ankle, I'm like,
oh my God,
I'm like, these are the ankles that have bothered him since he came into the league.
But he's playing as well as he's ever played. So
agreed. But in the back of my mind, I went, holy shit, offensive line still better be, you better get a guy that you're comfortable playing at left tackle just in case.
I think Marcus Bowe can do that because he did that. No, he's played left tackle in one of the games he started this year, and he was awesome in that game. So I think he can do that. Marcus Bowe, people keep shitting on me about Marcus Bowe. I would let Illuminor go, and I would go with Marcus Bowe. And size.
I agree
on that. I think Illuminor's at that age where he's going to go off a cliff, and I would not give him a big contract. I just wouldn't do that.
And he wants the money too. He keeps posting kind of what he's looking for something down the road, and I don't.
Somebody posted that he's real down on the way this team's run too. Did you see that?
I haven't seen that specifically. I'll have to look. I've seen a lot of his stuff.
In the forum. It was by somebody. I don't remember who said
I'll have to look. But it worries me. One, sometimes you can overvalue something that you have because it's better than what you had before.
Exactly. Bingo.
And I think right now the Giants' offensive line is getting better. But I don't think we'd have a huge drop-off if Bo slides in at right tackle, or if he slides to guard and we get a different right tackle. I don't really care which way that goes. I don't think it's going to drop off that much because Dart's mobility helps you there. I'd much rather have a younger guy developing on the right side where my quarterback's eyes are easily seen than on my left side, which is his blind side. And a mobile quarterback can deal with that guy coming off that he can see him.
Right.
So let Bo kind of, or get a different tackle and move Bo to guard. That's our big question mark. Is the entire right side of the offensive line is a question mark.
Yes.
Van Roten and Illuminor are free agents.
Van Roten better not come back. I mean, this should.
I don't mind if you re-sign him after you. Well, you said that last year, and I ended up being right on it. Right. I'm just saying, after you make a couple of moves, if that's the guy you bring in for some insurance, you get him cheaply.
He's 35 years old.
Yeah, but a 35-year-old backup who I know if I put him in, he can play center, he can play guard.
Maybe I don't know, John.
But again, it's after you've done other stuff. I'm not saying you go sign him immediately. No. Just like we didn't this year. He was an afterthought. You didn't think he was going to come back.
No, I didn't.
And they brought him back. I'm just saying if you
because Evan Neal was going to be the starting right guard.
What the fuck? Okay, so is Azuto active or not going to be active for this week? Is he off his window was open, but they haven't added him to the roster.
Questionable this week, even though he's fully practiced. The injury list was really weird this week. They had two fully practiced guys all week listed as questionable, which I don't know if I've ever seen that before. And then they had a guy that was limited, Roches, who was already been ruled out.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to wonder if, when they get towards the end of the year, the practice window, remember the practice window is 3 weeks. So it doesn't cost them anything to say they're opening up the window because the season will be over by the time the window closes. So some of this, I wonder, is them just giving these players practice reps on the scout team so they can get some work in. So Azuto can probably come in and play, but they're saying he's questionable. I'm guessing they're saying he's questionable because they may not activate him, is my guess. I don't think we'll see Azuto.
I think you're going to want to pay attention to guys who have maybe one more year on their contract. Those are guys that I suspect in the week 17, week 18, probably, if there's even a remote question, they don't play. And the reason they don't play is you don't want them to get injured where you're having to carry that salary, because you can't cut a guy injured without having to pay him. So they're not going to want to have anybody get long-term injured that they're going to end up being on the hook for if they can get rid of guys. So watch that over the next couple of weeks.
That would have to come from upstairs.
Correct. Kafka has nothing to do with that. That comes from outside.
Kafka's gone, and you can remember he's coaching for his next job. So he's not thinking about, I got to do what's best for the New York Giants now. He's not thinking, I mean, in a way he kind of is if he's got any honor, but most of it, it's like, I'm putting him out my resume here. I can't look like a complete asshole, or I'm not even going to get a coordinator job moving forward.
Yeah, good luck there. So something to keep an eye on too across the league. So the Giants are at the top of the draft order right now. The bad part is that the Raiders are right below us, and we play the Raiders. Strength of schedule, as Ray and Arlington would come in, plays a lot. I'm not going to get into that because it's more complicated than I want to deal with. So some things to keep an eye on. Kansas City out of the playoffs. Kansas City has.
Can you believe this? Can you believe that? And Mahomes, what a horrible weekend for injuries with.
But amazingly enough, Mahomes gets injured, gets a second opinion, gets a surgery, all within 3 days. I'm like, holy shit, that never happens.
Yeah. But he did have the same surgeon that Neighbors had, the Dallas guy, which I thought was interesting.
So the reason I brought this up is the Raiders have games against Kansas City. I believe the Raiders, they play. They have Kansas City. I'm not sure if they have Tennessee. They have us.
They look terrible. Can you? I didn't
Kansas City plays Tennessee this week. That's a big one for us with Tennessee right behind us as well. And their strength of schedule now is pretty high, but it will come down as teams lose. But Kansas City has a shit ton of players that are not going to play. Rashee Rice. I believe there's a couple of their offensive linemen. They're basically sitting a whole bunch of people. Do not be surprised if Tennessee wins this game this weekend against Kansas City.
How's Cam Ward doing? I have not paid attention to.
He's been really up and down. It's really hard. They fired their coach so early on. I will say I didn't like the fact that Cam Ward came out and made a point to tell people that he wants to have a say in who the next coach is. I'm like, what have you done, buddy? No. What have you done, buddy, that says you should have any input?
He should not take that public. I mean, if you feel that way, which I would have a problem with, you don't make that public.
No, you just keep that quiet. So, Cleveland's got some tough games, but they're going to be playing teams towards the end that might not have anything to play for. The big one to watch for us that could work against us is today. What if Philadelphia wins, Dallas is eliminated from any potential playoff possibility. That means their game with us, the last game of the season, is unbelievably pointless to them, both in draft position, because they've got 2 first-round picks as it is. They've got nothing really to worry about.
Yeah.
So this piece for them, if they wanted to screw the Giants, they could sit everybody on a away game and a cold day and just say, yeah, go ahead, win this cheap ass game. So for the Giants, this weekend's kind of big. I think if Tennessee beats Kansas City, that kind of knocks them out of any spot of getting to that number one. I kind of wish the Raiders would be able to pull something off before us because they're so bad. I just don't know. That's the game I think
a Pete Carroll coach team is playing as poorly as the Raiders are. I mean, that's just to me. And
I do want to say it's poorly put together.
Everything I heard about Cam Ward coming out of the draft talked about what a high character, great person, great, just the intangibles were there. But that gets back to the NIL crap that I was talking about, John. I worry about these athletes that are coming out of college now. Like you said, what right do you have to say that you haven't done anything, that you're going to have a say? So it shows the inflated, and this is coming from a guy that didn't have you knew there were going to be issues like Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur, you could, if that came from Shedeur, you and I would be like, oh, that's Shedeur. But for that to be coming from Cam Ward, I didn't hear that until you told me that. I'm like, that sort of supports what I was saying earlier about this whole NIL. We're in a new era. We're in a new environment now, for better or worse. And I know some people on the website like this. I don't think it's ever going to be the same again. I just think
college football is falling apart. They had a bowl game with almost nobody went. This whole playoff thing is so weird. The amount of, and these guys, the transfer portal, why the hell are you able to just jump in at any time you feel like it now? And you're being recruited by other schools.
It's the transfer portal to me, and I'll keep it short. The transfer portal to me is just unbelievable. So when you look at a player now in the draft, it's not unheard of to see him have changed schools 3 times now. And it's like, oh my God, it's like free agency, but on steroids. But it's at the college level when these guys are like 20 years old, 19 or 20 years old. I can't even imagine being that age and dealing with the stuff that they're doing. If I had been changing colleges when I was that age, that would have been insane to me.
Yeah, I can't remember the school. So forgive me. I believe it was Texas. but there was a picture outside. I don't know if it was a dorm or one of the facilities where there was a bunch of cars that these players had. There was like a Lamborghini. There was a couple other. I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my God, this is crazy. The thing that people say, well, this is the way it should be. They should have the right to be able to go where they want to, and it's kind of like, oh, any other job can do. This is where I disagree with that. It would be one thing if what you're talking about is a different job. If you worked for Boeing and some other, aerospace group decides they want to hire you, you don't work in the same thing. You might in the same industry, but it's not the same thing. College football is college football. You're just taking players from one of the other portions of your structure, the NCAA college football structure. It's like the NFL. It's why the NFL doesn't allow teams to just go. You can't just go entice a guy to leave the other team while he's under contract and be like, yeah, fuck it, I'm leaving. I'm going to go over here. You can't do that.
The old USFL days.
It's crazy that this is what they think is okay. And the way it's being done. Now, rules need to be applied to coaches as well, too. I mean, the Lane Kiffin thing was a joke.
No, that's terrible. That was
joke.
To me, that strikes him off even consideration. What a low character move that was. Last thing on this whole thing with college football. Look, I'm old enough to know that the college system has always had massive corruption and a lot of people pretending things worked a certain way and it didn't. I get it. And there are certain schools that were better than others in trying to play by the rules and others that just completely abandoned and there were no rules. But if there's no pretense at all now of the purpose is to educate these young men, just set up a minor league system.
Right, exactly. Tie it to the schools, to the NFL, and just do that.
Because, John, the thing, this gets off. Maybe you and I should have a non-football podcast sometime. The problem is this. Imagine if you're a student who has nothing to do with sports going to some of these schools and tens of millions of dollars of the school's money is going to basically bribe football players. That's what it is. You're basically bribing and paying the football players.
Sure.
And the tuitions are ridiculous, and it's
still going up.
And you wonder, we could spend multiple podcasts on why tuitions keep going up and the corruption in this system. But one of the big things pertaining to what we do is that they're bribing the players to stay there. I couldn't, imagine if you went to Alabama and you were like an engineering student. You like the fact that your football team's doing well, but you're also like, Jesus Christ, you're giving all this money to these guys that can't even read and write because they can throw a football and catch it. So it's the whole
and then those guys just up and leave. Like the next year, they're like, you know what? I'm going to go here. I'm entering the transfer portal.
They end up being Evan Neal, who gets tens of millions of more dollars for the Giants for not, and Evan Neal is going to finish this season without having one snap. He will have played one game where he didn't take a snap. He was inactive for every game this year or on IR. And the one game he played and he never took a snap. The seventh player taken in the draft.
In his defense, he did not give up one pressure. So, all right.
He's on the roster too. I mean, it's
so that being said, on that note,
subscribe.
All that good stuff. Like, subscribe, all the good things. Comment. It's great. I tried to get to all the comments. I apologize. It's been a little bit high. I was under the weather earlier this week, and I was dealing. And my wife was away, so I was trying to deal. And we had other people in the house under the weather at the same time, so I was kind of dealing with both. That said, though, is there anything in particular we're looking for from this game other than just don't get hurt, Dart?
Don't embarrass yourselves. Don't get hurt.
I mean, we're past that.
For the love of God. Keep Jackson Dart healthy, Abdul Carter healthy. Look, the only thing I'm really looking at these last games is Jackson Dart, Abdul Carter, some of the other young guys that are on the team, but nothing much else. I mean, none of these guys. I mean, Kafka's not coming back. Shane, who the hell knows? I don't know what's going on. But, I expect this game to be ugly. It shouldn't be ugly based on the way we played earlier, but they seem to have reached the I don't give a shit stage level. So
I think two things to keep an eye on is if we start hearing things publicly about John Mara, then I think that means it's as low. It's to the point where things are really bad and about to go. I think they're keeping it here, and we've heard
right.
rumors. If it starts leaking out, I think that means they know the end is near, and it could happen at any moment. So
And there
that's
have been more posts on the site this week from people who have said, and these aren't braggarts, these aren't people that have been known to like stir shit up. There have been people saying, this is what I'm hearing it too. You know, there are people that don't normally say things like that. So
yeah.
Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is all wrong, and I hope or there's a miraculous recovery. But I think the silence is deafening at this point.
We're getting close. Sorry, we're getting close to Black Monday.
Right.
That's the Monday right after the end of the season, and the question will become: even if the Giants are bringing Joe Shane back, who from management is going to be the person to come and do that end of the year thing? So that
was the point of our show last week. People, again, if you're bored, if you don't want to watch the Giants and you're bored, watch our last podcast. Our last podcast was basically who the hell is running this thing right now, and I don't know who's running it. I don't think John Mara is running the show. But so who's
I can't imagine. Yeah,
who's running the show right now? And I don't know. I don't know who it is. Is it a committee? Is it a group of people? Is it one person? I don't know who's running.
And I think some of it too is the show is kind of like it's intermission. You know what I mean? Nothing's really happening anyway. The guy doing whatever he does is, he's handling the coaching stuff, and Chris and Tim are probably chiming in a little bit with him, but they're not really doing, anything else. Steven, real quick, the game. Yeah. Eric and I actually have decided that we will do at least the first half of the Raiders game, because that should be the one where the Giants probably play well. So we'll do the first half of the Raiders game. We'll see about the second half.
The first half would be better for me because I when I talk to you, I don't know.
You have to update the site, and
it's a 4:00 game. That's the problem, and I got to update the site. So the later games are an issue with me. So
we'll do the first half. I think it works better too. It was easier for me the second half, even with not just the fact that Giants were coming back in that, but it's hard to watch it and talk about it at the same time. And
you guys kind of look at the thing, and I can't really watch the game and talk at the same time. It's just hard to do that.
But it's fun. It'll be fun to do one when they're winning and stuff. Would be great. I think we're going to be busy in the offseason.
Seconds of that first half just sucked it out of me. And then they were playing like I kept saying, and I rewatched part of the game. I didn't do it side and rewatch the whole game. I still thought they were running around with like cement shoes. They just seemed very. I don't know if it's the weather or they're not playing with a lot of urgency. But I thought the defense just wasn't moving.
Well, the Giants are very slow.
Well, Duke Carter's not slow. Brian Burns isn't slow.
But they are slow in a number of spots. Running back is unbelievably. Tracy's decent. He's not fast. Singletary, not fast. They are slow going through the line sometimes, and that's why they get caught.
Yeah, but I was talking about the defense. I was talking about the defensive
side. And our linebackers are.
Oh yeah, our
I don't count the edges.
Our linebackers suck.
They're horrifying. They're like they actually make Howard Cross look fast.
Oh, God.
It was like really bad.
Sorry, Howard, if you're watching.
But
we love you, but you weren't the fleetest.
The other thing with special teams is once you start getting depleted in a number of areas, so you're playing guys in regular base offense, base defense, things like that, that affects your special teams. Those guys are your main special teams players. Now you're playing guys like Javon Holland is returning punts, and you're like, you spent a bunch of money on this guy as a starting safety. Now I got him returning punts. Have you not learned anything from the years of putting guys back there that you can't afford to have get hurt?
I'm going to ask you one question before we get off, because I'm embarrassed to say this because this last week it was because of Christmas and because I was just depressed with the Giants. Did they ever explain why our punter was dancing around?
I haven't heard a word about that. Was ridiculous.
What was that all about? Does anyone in chat know why our punter was dancing around? If you do, or maybe you can post it in the thread about this podcast later on. I don't know what is Pat Hanlon it's from. I just saw Pat Hanlon. No, I don't think that's happened.
Oh, Pat.
Pat's a good guy in terms of helping out the site and doing things. The one thing I will say about Pat that everyone should appreciate is that when there are people out there who there are family deaths or kids involved or anything where the team can intervene and help. This is where the Giants are good, and it's the family business part of it.
What?
What happened?
I tried to post something and it called my thing spam because I used the word
You are
suicide.
spam.
Because I used the word suicide in it. But I just said we need our own suicide squad to ops comment.
Why would that's not spam?
You're not allowed to use the word.
I've noticed on YouTube that a lot of content creators they have to bleep out words that you wouldn't even think that you would have to bleep out because it causes issues with them. I've wondered, and you just showed me why that's ridiculous. So suicide, you can't even say.
Yeah, and I was saying suicide squad.
Maybe I just got her thing demonetized.
I would probably should stop saying it. I'm gonna have to bleep it out probably. Because
don't kill yourselves.
Because Optimus said about, it's being run now like Arkham Asylum. I was saying we need our own blank squad to break in. There's a whole, if you know the DC universe, there's a whole thing where the squad breaks into Arkham Asylum. Anyway, doesn't matter. I can't believe that got, and it got rejected. It literally says YouTube rejected your comment.
Now, what is your call out? You're famous on, Louis said that you're famous.
With that being said, subscribe. With that being said, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all those things for Hanukkah, everything, all of them.
Happy festivals.
Yeah. To all of you, we do appreciate it. It's been so much fun. This is great. This part's great.
It's so much fun rooting for the New York Giants.
I don't understand how the hell you would think you've always said it can always get worse.
It can always get worse.
When we finished last year, I'm thinking, hey, there's no way we're going to be doing a 3-win season. I didn't know I was going to be right, but for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I know. What if we if we finish with 2 wins in a way, it's going to be great in a weird way. But oh my God. Yeah. And I just look, I used to, at the end of the year, want to get the highlight tape for the year. Even if it was a bad season, I would want to get highlight tape. I get this is some of the old stuff, but I got Giants memorabilia all over the place. I collect things. I don't go nuts. But
you don't have a helmet collection of
but it's just, it's like right now, it's the last 12 years. It's been like, oh my God, it's been you and I talked about this. We remember stuff from 40, 30, 20 years ago way better than we do in the last 10, because the last 10 has just been this mind-numbing, come and go of coaches, players, general managers. They all seem to blur together. All the bad moments seem to blur together. And to me, I have a hard time remembering the last, and I don't think it's age. I hope it's not. I hope it's not dementia kicking in. But,
weird about my short-term memory. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. But
short-term memory with the Giants is shot.
I'd be like, you remember that play where Bruner throws the pass deep down the sidelines to Floyd Eddings? Do you remember that? Oh, sure.
By the way, Paul Kelly mentioned earlier, and I think he's right. I think Maddox was under Reeves. Wasn't it? I know he played for Reeves in Denver.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because I don't think Fossil put Maddox in there.
You might be right. Yeah.
And Fossil went through a number of quarterbacks.
Because Reeves drafted Maddox with Denver. You're right. It was Reeves. And Maddox. Was it 96 then? Was it the last year?
Probably. I'm guessing.
Because
I don't think they put him in 95. I don't think
Fossil had Brown to start. Cannell took over because Brown started the first game against the Eagles. The Giants won that game. Brown had a deep pass. I can't remember who he threw it to. I think it was Cab Calloway who had to sit there and wait for it to come down. I'm like, Sam Garnes had an interception. Was it a TD? I think he had an interception.
Who's the wide receiver against the Eagles that had a touchdown, but he tripped over his own feet and fell down? Do you remember that? There was someone in chat might remember that we had a touchdown. It was like a Daniel Jones moment. He was running for a touchdown. He tripped over his own feet.
What year? I mean, what year frame? Time frame are we
It was
talking?
in that time period. It was like, anyways. Like you said, we went through. It was like we went through Danny Cannell, Kent Graham, Dave Brown. Not in that order, but we went through. Until Kerry Collins. And Kerry Collins was the first quarterback in forever to throw for 300 yards, which was a joke.
And then there was the guy. There were two guys that Giants year in and year out, BBI elsewhere, kept saying if they ever get on the field, if we can play them. One was a wide receiver, Brian Alford.
No,
the other was Mike Cherry, the quarterback. They're like, I think Mike Cherry Mike Cherry. You put Cherry out there. Alford's our deep guy. Those guys were on the roster for a couple of years, never did a goddamn thing.
One of my favorite BBI. We should have a show on favorite BBI moments. We used to have a guy I think it was Matt in Syracuse, who used to say Sean Bennett is the next Jim Brown.
Sean Bennett.
That guy showed up at a get-together once. He came up and shook my hand and disappeared. And I said, "Who are you?" I said, "This is Matt in Syracuse." And so I reflexively, it was like,
God,
"Oh my God, he's gonna kill me!"
Bennett.
And then he just shook my hand. He seemed like a nice guy, and he walked away.
What is it?
Burly guy, and he shook my hand and he walked away. And I was like, "That's the Sean Bennett guy."
Is there
Sean Bennett guy?
I don't know how to say this in a way that's not just funny, but potentially not funny. Is there some weird sort of like? No, I guess because we had other players.
We should have a BBI show.
But if you look, if the Giants get a white running back, they generally give him the number 44. Doug Kotar, Sean Bennett. Like, okay, sure.
Can you imagine coming out and say Sean Bennett is the next Jim Brown? Oh no.
Oh man, there were some times there were players when you look back. I mean, linebacker Buckley. I remember that. Just going, he could be something. Kenyon Rashid, our running back. Just guys. Aaron Emanuel, a running back. I think we got him from USC. Looked great. He had shoulder problems in college. What happened in preseason? He had a shoulder problem. Never played.
Yeah. So Larry, and if he's on here, he's talked about this too. Larry has talked about we should have sort of like a show just reminiscing about stuff, not like a particular season or moment or game or anything like that, but just talking shit like this. So
that'd be fun.
That'd be more interesting than discussing the Giants.
So here's one real quick, and then I'm going to call it.
I'm in Giants now.
Who is the last kicker that the New York Giants drafted?
Was it Sheik?
It's not Sheik.
They drafted Sheik, though, right?
Yes.
It was
not Sheik. It's more recent than that.
Oh, I don't know.
Because Sheik would be what, 83?
Wait, Stover? No.
Nope. More recent than that.
Did they draft Stover?
You're not going to get it. Yes, okay. They drafted Stover. He was was he like back in the day of 12 rounds? I think he was pretty late in the draft.
Who, Stover?
Yeah, he was pretty late in the draft.
So
I'm just curious. I was curious if anybody else.
I'm not going to get it.
Chat usually knows this shit, so I thought they would get it right off. It was John Markham. I believe he was from Wake Forest or Vanderbilt. Yeah, he was in it was
what year, or roughly, like
mid to late 90s, early 2000s.
I don't even recognize that name. I don't even know.
John Markham was the last time the Giants drafted a kicker. So there you go.
The guy who knows every player,
Larry.
Oh well, is Larry too. Ray in Arlington remembers everything. I think he's got a what is the memory that's a photogenic memory? What do they call that?
Eidetic.
I don't know if he's got that, but my goodness, he can remember jersey numbers for every freaking player. But Matt in SGS, because of his Twitter account too, he tweets out stuff on players that I'm like, I forgot about that guy.
That he even played for them.
Third string. I mean, I'm not talking like Bob Morosco type players. I'm talking about guys that were like third string left tackle type people and teams that don't normally have a third string tackle. He'd have guys like that. I'm like, I didn't even remember that guy. But when he brings him up, I remember him. But I'm like, I have long forgotten about that. So So there are guys that would stump you and me left and right out there. Like,
oh, probably. I would love to play a game now. Again, I brought this up so many times. I played that Name That Giant game one time in the Giants parking lot on Giants radio. That was so much fun. And the people I was going against, I'm thinking, oh shit, these guys were eager to do it. At first, I'm kind of standing back. I'm like, I don't, you know, my friend goes, if you don't do it, I'm telling everybody you're a pussy. I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I just blew those people away. Like it wasn't even. I'm like, this isn't a challenge. But yeah, it was fun. That shit was fun. I reminiscing about it. The problem is that's all we have left.
That's all we have left. It's all we have. All we have left is Larry's pinned threads on. Remember how the Giants played the Vikings in 1990? Great. Half the people in chat are like, I wasn't even born, or I was 8 years old when that happened. I don't remember.
Well, let's watch these last few weeks. Guys that come up off the practice squad who plays. We're looking for our next Jonas Seawright.
Yeah, his other name, Jonas Seawright. Yeah.
So there you go. All right. That being said, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will be back. We'll do a show next week at some point. Christmas is next week, so it's either going to be really early or we're going to wait until the game on Sunday. It might be we wait till the game. We'll see what happens. Who knows? If anything breaking happens, anything with John Mara, anything like that, we will definitely jump in and do something like that. But that said, happy holidays, everybody, and we'll catch you real soon.